Hello and welcome to Fantasy Premier League, the D Unit's journey, and I've got my co-host here, Alan. Before you go anywhere, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening on audio, please give us a follow and rate the show. And you can follow me on all the social media platforms at KMPDK14. And Alan, where can they find you at?
Alan, ALAN underscore Hunsdale, HUNSDALE.
Fantastic. Now, how was your weekend, Alan?
Poor. It was poor in terms of FPL. I scored 47 points. Salah saved me with 20. But earlier on it was looking really dire. I think I was on like 22 points. So it wasn't great at all.
I'm hoping the camping went a little bit better than the than your fantasy Premier League team.
No, well, do you know what? The camping didn't even go better than that either because on Saturday in the UK, it rained all day long. So I was absolutely soaked, completely depressed by my FPL performance. Yeah, it was a shocker. However, on Sunday, the sun came out and Salah got me 20 points. So it did get better. It did get better. But I wasn't at the heights of the 80s and 90s that I would have liked to have been.
No, that's very fair. That's very fair. Like, obviously, I actually had the exact same week as I had in game week one. I actually ended up with 80 points. Yeah, I'm very consistent. I've hit 80 points game week one, and I've hit 80 points again in game week two. I am slightly disappointed though. I mean, so many people in our league, and we'll get to the scores from our league in a little bit later on, but there were some big scores. I got outscored by, I think, four or five, six teams or something like that. It was mad. And a lot of people, as we talked about last week, did actually play the triple captain on haaland, and it's safe to say I think that paid off.
Yeah, do you know what? I think it did. I mean, I was thinking about it, and I thought, if you look at it on in black and white, Haaland against a team like Ipswich, and he's rested. You would think he would score a couple of goals. I was just really hoping he wouldn't because he wasn't in my team. But it was a great punt. And the thing is, there's always risk, isn't there? Later on in the season with people getting injured and all that kind of stuff. So I think it paid off for the people that did it. Well done to them. And I also think that everyone that captained him, it was a no brainer. So um, yeah, I mean there's some people that are like 100 points ahead of other people now. So all because of Holland.
Yeah, it's actually insane. So when we look back at what happened on the weekend in our main overall league, which is the thing you compete in the D unit, and I have risen from second place to top, so I am now leading. I will be the leader at the end of August. Just want to put that out there. Just float my own boat. And the Daddy Dtuck, who was leading, had a very disappointing score of 59 and has sunk back into mid-table. And unfortunately, Alan, your score has dropped you a significant margin. It's taking you from third down to 14th.
Yeah, I mean it's a shocker, but do you know what? With these things at the start of the season, just like in the Premier League, people will go up and down the table. It will fluctuate until I think people settle into their teams. There's some exciting things coming up which we're going to talk about, but yeah, I've got a lot of ground to make up. So has Darren, and he only got what 59 points. I think he was 12 points ahead of me, and I had him in the head-to-head. So he beat me in that as well by 12 points because of his great defense score that he got. So yeah, a bit sore about that still.
Yeah, I tell you what, Lau, I am stiff. I actually versed the top scorer of the week in the head-to-head league, and who has moved. I don't know where he was in game week one, but he has moved up into second spot, and he got a top score in our league of 97. I mean, it was just unlucky. If
Yeah,
we just have a quick look at his team, he had everything go right. He had Raya with 10 points, Van de Ven, Poro. The only player that didn't actually score for his team, he actually had four players that didn't score, but he had all the big hitters. So he had Palmer's 17. He had Haaland's captain of 34 points. He had Welbeck, who got nine. I was just very unlucky. And then when you look at the people that were sitting on my bench, well, that made for very disappointing viewing because I had Foes and Ahmad 6 and 7. That would have been an extra 13 points. that I missed out on when I had Jacob Murphy and Woods stinking it up again for me. That was quite disappointing. Yeah.
I think that it's easy. It's easy to say when you score that massive score, you're jumping up and down, and when you get a poor score, then you sort of blame it on things. But you got to take it on the chin. And I think for this guy that got that 97, great choices for a team. I mean, Raya 10 points, and Welbeck as a striker, what a shout, So I think it's a very well deserved 97 points for him.
No, that's fair. Now, I was going to say, who are your two standout performers from the week? But looking at your team, I think I already know the answer.
What are you talking about? My actual team?
Your actual team. Who are your two standout performers?
I mean, there's only one, and that's Salah and Saka. Salah and Saka. They've been consistent. They've been consistent for me. From game week 1. They are the sort of expensive ones. So, but I'm hoping with the fixtures coming up, some of these other ones will come into to their own, especially Watkins, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, definitely Salah and Saka were my standouts for my team. And I think in FPL in general, I think the standouts for me was Haaland and Palmer. I think they've done amazing.
Oh, 100%. They were unbelievably good. Unbelievably good. Now, for me, my two standouts were Haaland. Obviously, did pick him as a captain. And then the next best was Salah. But if I'd had my time again, I did bring in Foes, as I said, for Barco as my trade last week. And I really wish I'd put him on field instead of either Wood, Murphy or Isaac, who all very much disappointed for me this week. So I suppose when we look at the two disappointments for my team this week, Wood definitely was disappointing. Isaac and Murphy, though, for Newcastle, and we'll get to later in the show our plans for the week, but it's safe to say that those two were definitely my two non-performers of the week. How about your team? Which two disappointed you the most?
Where do I start? Nkunku, Watkins. I mean, I could just go on. I mean, I think for me, I'm disappointed Watkins hasn't done the thing yet. He really needs to pull his finger out in the next couple of weeks. Isaac. Yeah, do you know what? I'm going to say Watkins and Isaac, them two.
No, that's fair. That's fair. So we'll just have a quick rundown of all the games that happened as they went down on the weekend. And the first game of the round, I predicted it was going to be a 2-1 win to Man United. And I tell you what, I don't know how we didn't win, but it's safe to say that it was just a familiar failing and my Saturday got off to a rotten start. But the big point scorers in this one were João Pedro and Welbeck. And Ahmad obviously got me the points from the bench. West Ham Palace, what did you think? We both thought that was going to be a draw, didn't we?
Yeah, I thought it'd be a draw. Didn't expect them to get the result they did, but that's football, right? Can't get it right all the time, otherwise we'd all be millionaires gambling.
I tell you what, mate, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, Bowen and Souček got the goals there, so Souček another £5 million option. We go down to the next game, Fulham versus Leicester. That was a 2-1 win to Fulham. And again, I had Foes on the bench who scored me a goal. But for anyone that had Smith Rowe and Iwobi, they both performed. And Robinson, which is another popular option on the bench, he also returned with an assist in that game, even though he conceded a goal.
Yeah.
And then we got to the game where you wish that this game didn't happen. Man City against Ipswich.
We were messaging each other, and I could see it and just going team goal, and I was just like, no, painful.
Yeah, well, I was loving it, and I did say I actually thought that he would score 4, and he probably should have scored 4, truth be told. But alas, he got a hat trick, and I don't think any of his owners are going to be too disappointed with that particular performance. No. We go down to Southampton against Nottingham Forest. Gibbs White, who had been a popular target, got the only goal in that game, and he got the 2 bonus points as well. Aina actually got the 3 bonus points, which was interesting. Also, just quickly, back on that Haaland thing, I don't think I've ever seen a player get... Well, it must have happened last year, but I've not actually paid that much attention to the bonus points. But Haaland finished on 80 bonus point system, like 80 points in the bonus point system. That's just an absurd number.
Yeah. I mean, it's Haaland, right? You know,
So next game was the Spurs versus Everton game that finished
really
4-0 to
let you
Spurs.
down. I mean, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk.
You're just salty, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah,
Spurs will just quickly flip over that one. Everton look like they're relegation fodder at this point, and I know it's early on. Son scored a double at that one to reward his owners, and Kulusevski actually started the game, which was nice and got me an assist. But yeah, we'll get to him a little bit later on. Here's a slight concern for me moving forward. The next game was Aston Villa against Arsenal. Arsenal got the goals and the clean sheet, so those defenders, they're racking up the points already again early. Raya and Gabriel
yeah,
both involved in the bonus point system again, so that's really good. And Saka there got an assist and returned as well. The interesting game, Bournemouth against Newcastle, definitely, well, Gordon repaid the faith for his owners because he scored, but I tell you what, all the other Newcastle players have really been letting their managers down.
yeah. The defence has been looking a little bit ropey. I think they were lucky against Bournemouth. Saying that, I brought in a Newcastle defender this week, so you know, hopefully it improves. But yeah, the defence isn't looking good for them.
I'm intrigued to hear about that move a little bit later on. Now, the next game, which was probably the most entertaining game of the weekend, was Wolves versus Chelsea, where it finished an incredible 2-6. And an interesting stat from this game is
Yeah,
that the XG for Wolves was actually higher than the XG for Chelsea. And yet, so the scoreline actually looked like they flattered Chelsea in particular. But in this game, we had Palmer with a hat-trick of assists and a goal, and Madueke, I think he's pronounced, he scored a hat-trick,
yeah,
so massive numbers.
yeah. He looked great. He looked great. I mean, I think that he's probably nailed on for Palace this week. But he looks so good, and I think that he against Nkunku, I think that he's a good probably replacement for him, possibly. Because I mean he's a great player, but I think he's a bit of a rotation risk. But yeah, I loved him. I thought he was great. I loved the way he was playing, so I was happy with that. And just end to end football, just end to end football. Lots of goals, exciting, fun, great to watch.
Yeah, no, it was an unbelievable game to watch. It was definitely great Sunday night entertainment, that's for sure. Super Sunday off to a flyer with that one. Hopefully this week's is just as good. Looking at that game though, it was just hard to believe. I was watching that game, and obviously the player Olaf, I was versing, had Palmer in his team, and I was like, out Nori, that was probably the worst left back performance I've ever seen. He literally got caught out of position and was like a witch's hat on all three of his goals. It was like rinse and repeat, and I was like, come on, mate, learn how to defend. Um, then the last game of the round was Liverpool against Brentford. And here I'd worked it out. I needed at least 3 goals to be scored by my players, a combination of either Salah, Jota, and Trent. And I needed at least 2 assists to reel in the difference. Unfortunately, I got 1 goal and I got 1 assist. So I didn't quite get the points needed to haul him in. But Mo Salah again scored in this game, and so did Jota. And Trent just missed out on a bonus point by 1. Can you believe? No, 2. Virgil got a bonus point on 31, and Trent finished on 29. So that's unlucky for him.
Yeah, yeah. No, Liverpool played well. They had great possession, lots of I say lots of shots, more shots than Brentford, and they were just passing a lot. And I think that Brentford they're missing Tony. I think Mbeumo's going to be potentially slip into there, but I think they're missing Tony. And what they're going to do with that, I don't know. See.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Obviously, the main concern that I obviously noticed from here, as you alluded to before with Ollie Watkins, coming up, what stood out for me is that Aston Villa have probably had a tricky first 2 games against West Ham and Arsenal on the weekend, but their run coming up is insane, and the numbers going for Morgan Rogers, he's already risen by 0.1. He's already up to 5.1. He looks like a really good option moving forward for anyone, and I think you actually do have to try and get some Villa players in with the run they've got coming up.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, Leicester, Everton, Wolves, Ipswich. We spoke about Everton. The defence is poor. You spoke about Wolves. Al Nouri at the back, he looked dodgy. And Ipswich, like that, those are great opportunities for Watkins to get some goals. And I think also Rodgers and Bailey could be great replacements. If you've got Nkunku in your team and you're thinking about who should I replace him with, Rodgers and Bailey all day.
Yeah, 100%. I suppose the one thing that also stood out for me was that Chelsea game. Like, obviously, they looked so good going forward, but I don't think I'd bother investing in the Chelsea backline because they look like they will concede about as many goals as they'll score. But I think they'll score a few goals, and I think it'll be quite entertaining watching them. The only concern I've got, and I know that this is probably something you're going to touch on later, is Nkunku was left on the bench, and unfortunately for his owners, he actually came on. And if you had him on field, he got the 1 point for him coming on. But the options that Chelsea had in that game are just insane, and it's hard to see how they're all going to fit in. And there's still rumours that they're trying to bring in Sancho and another forward. I'm just trying to struggle to see how they're all going to fit. So before I jump in on anyone other than Cole Palmer, I think I actually want to see a few games in a row where they start. And Madueke, obviously, he actually dropped in price prior to the game against Wolves. He was down to 6.4. Well, during the week, he's now gone back up to 6.5, just showing that one good game can change a lot in life and fantasy. All right, I think we've accidentally lost Alan here. So we're just going to carry on regardless. I'm not sure. His internet must have dropped out. Unfortunate for that. Hold on. He looks like he's back. And we're just going to
Sorry, I
carry on.
dropped out there for a second. I don't know what happened there.
All good, all good. We've got you back. So continuing on, we're up to, all right, question time. So Dtuck has asked this question because he, like you, does not have the halaand. What do you do if you don't have halaand?
I just think that I think that you stick. I mean, like we're talking about um, sort of wild cards and things like that. And I think the thing with Haaland, if you haven't got him in, he's so expensive. You're going to have to sell people and move things around to try and get him in, and you can't really do that in the two transfers that people probably have. Um, so there probably are people out there that have seen, like people in my position, that are on sort of 47 points. They're seeing people getting 100. They're falling really behind, and they want to make that up. But I think that if you're on the fence, if you're umming and ahhing about is it time to wild card, you don't need to. I just think that it's a knee jerk. I think that you need to have faith in the process. I think that you need to look at your team as a whole rather than just one big player, because like the people we've spoken about, the Rodgers, the Bailey, Smith Rowe. You can have lots of other players there. The Chelsea guy. There's lots of other players that you could have in your team that can get points, and I don't think you should just rely on those big hitters. So yeah, if you're waiting and on the fence to do a wild card, you probably don't need it, because you've got the international break coming up. You're going to have injuries potentially there, and there's lots of more information. I mean, the transfer window's still open till Friday, so who knows what else can happen. So I think it's time to hold tight and wait for more information, unless your team is an absolute mess.
100%, 100%. Look, I actually thought about wildcarding myself, and like I've had two 80-point rounds. So I did weigh up the merits because obviously there are a lot of price changes, and in my mind I was like, going, can I get a bit tricky? And certain players, like for example, Kulusevski, I could have traded him out before he went to 6.4 and then traded him back in at 6.4 if I had actually used the wild card. And I know a few players, a few fantasy players on wildcard this week have done that with Watkins to dodge the price change going down, and then it brought him back in for point 0.1 cheaper to bank it into their thing. So that is a strategy. I think it's a little bit raw because you are, it's a bit early, I think, to be wildcarding unless you've absolutely made a meal of your team and you haven't got either Salah and Haaland. I think then you probably do need to play a wild card because your initial team probably just was no good to begin with. But yeah, I agree. I think that playing the wild card this early on, just isn't, and you've just got to stick it out. I mean, if you didn't go with haaland for a reason, and I think you probably need to see it through until you do go to that wild card because it's just hard to get him in. 15 mil is very hard to find because every other player is under 13. So that's a lot of money that you have to find in order to get to him. The next question we've got is from Olaf, who's thinking about trading out Dan Burns from Newcastle for either gvardiol or however you say his name, from Man City, or Gabriel from Arsenal. What do you think on that one?
Gabriel from Arsenal. I think that you need to have an Arsenal defender. I think you just need to. So, if it's a choice between them two, Gabriel.
Fair. I would also agree with that. I would probably be holding off on that trade until after Man City play Arsenal in game week 5. That would be my suggestion to him on that one there. The next question we've got is about Nkunku. Now, I know that this is a relevant question for you, Alan, because you also have Nkunku. What do you do with him?
Well, I've swapped him out. So I've swapped him out. I've taken him out. I think, as I said before, he's a rotation risk. Do you know what? I really like the look of Smith Rowe. I brought Smith Rowe in as a replacement for him. I was thinking about going with a Rodgers or a Bailey for Villa with their run coming up, but I thought, do you know what? If I bring them in, and Watkins has a nightmare and they have a nightmare, I'm just going to be kicking myself. So, I think the one that will be getting the goals on the run will hopefully be Watkins. So I thought I'd go with Smith Rowe to offset it a bit.
That's good. I think that's a very good trade. We'll get to what I've done later on in the show. But the last question we've got is Bruno Fernandes. So Bruno Fernandes has blanked in his first 2 game weeks. And to be honest, I didn't think he looked overly flash against Brighton. However, my advice here would be to stick him out. I believe a couple of the boys in our league are actually trading him out. I believe even to Saka. And again, the reason why I haven't got any Arsenal players at the moment is because of the fact that they do have a couple of hard games coming up. But I intend on bringing in Saka and a few others for game week 6 moving forward because they have an amazing run after they've played Man City. But if I had Fernandes, I think I'd be sticking. I just have a feeling this weekend he's probably going to score a goal and he might be the reason that United get over Liverpool. We'll get to that when we go through the fixtures in a second. All right, now onto the fixtures for this weekend, and we have Arsenal versus Brighton. Do you think that ends in anything else other than an Arsenal win, Alan?
No, I mean, it's an Arsenal win. I think that Saka is a good option for captaincy. Yeah, I think that if you've got Saka and you haven't got a Haaland or I think probably if you haven't got, I would say probably if you haven't got a Haaland or a Palmer, I think you probably captain Saka this week again in that fixture.
I actually think Brighton will score a goal. I don't think that Arsenal will keep a clean sheet in this, but I can't see them not winning. The next game, Brentford against Southampton, I think that's just going to be a draw.
I think Mbumo. I think Mbumo. This is the sort of the week where he could get a few points. I think 4 and 5, he's got some tough fixtures, but I think if you've got him in your team, he'd get you some points this week. But that should be a Brentford win.
And then it's the way Everton are playing. I actually don't think they're capable of getting a goal. So I think in my mind, it's either a draw or Bournemouth win this 1 or 2-0.
Do you know what? I think that Semedo could get some goals. I think that Everton's defence is a shocker. I think they've probably got the second worst defence in the Premier League at the moment. So I think Bournemouth are going to win. I think they could win by a couple of goals.
Now, I think we'll both be hoping for the same thing here when Fulham play Ipswich, but I think we'll both be hoping that Smith Rowe gets off to a flyer in our teams and hopefully can deliver some points for us.
Oh, 100%. I want Smith Rowe to get a couple of goals. Do you know what? I want Smith Rowe to do what Palmer done last week. If Smith Rowe can just do what Palmer done last week, I'll be happy. I want Muniz to get a few goals, Palmer to get some goals and assists. Smith Rowe to get some goals and assists. That'd be amazing. And I think they can.
Yeah, I think Fulham will win this game quite comfortably. Leicester against Aston Villa. I think Villa will win this, and I think hopefully for you, I think Ollie Watkins will get off the mark here as well.
That's what I'm hoping for. And then they're going to come into a really nice run. So yeah, I think this will be a comfortable win for Villa.
Next up, Nottingham Forest against Wolves. That's the last of the 3 p.m. kickoffs. After I've watched Wolves defending, I'm praying. I've got my praying hands out for Chris Wood to get me a couple of goals against that Wolves defence. So I'm going for a Forest win.
Yeah, I think Wood was unlucky with his points last week because the yellow card. But yeah, I think a Forest win. Yeah, I think a Forest win. And a Wood goal. There you go.
Love it, love it. Man City against away at West Ham. Do we think Haaland's going to continue his scoring form?
Yeah, I think he will.
That's great news.
That's the last I'm saying on the matter.
Chelsea against Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace has started the season exceptionally poor to the point where if I was wildcarding this week, Henderson would be out the exit door because they don't look like keeping a clean sheet. And who knows what this score will be, but I'm kind of concerned because I'm playing Tom this week and he has Palmer in his team. And I'm just hoping that the left back is not as bad as the right back was. So as the left back was for Wolves in the previous game week. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think. Do you know what? I'm going to go for a draw. That's what I'm going for. I'm going for an Eze goal. I'm going for Mateta goal, like a 2-2. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, no, I dare say Eze owners are probably hoping that he can finally get off the mark because it's been 2 dud weeks for him so far. Next up, Newcastle versus Spurs. This could be anything because Spurs just like to attack and playing on time at the Toon is just hard work in general. I actually believe that Isak will probably score his first goal, but I would also think that Spurs are going to score a few here. This could be, Super Sunday could be massive this week. There could be goals in all 3 of these games. I wouldn't be surprised if this finished 3-3.
Yeah. I was going to say that. I think that Arsenal need to get their arse into. Newcastle need to get their arse into gear, and I think Isaac. Yeah, he could get a few goals, and I think Tottenham could get a few goals, and like you say, it could be 3-3.
And then on to our last game of the round, and that is Man United against Liverpool. This actually goes into my birthday, which is on the Monday. So I'm hoping that my team, it's annoying because I've got the triple up on Liverpool. So like part of me wants them to score goals, but I also, being a United fan, I'm going to be starting Ahmad on the field this week. So I'm backing him in to hopefully deliver me another goal like he did last week. And I'm hoping that United are going to win this like 4-3 in like the FA Cup round from last year. That's my dream. It's probably going to be 0-0 draw, but I'm going for a 4-3 Man United win. What do you reckon?
I don't think it'll be a big goal game. I think that Salah will probably get a return. I think he'll probably get a goal, but I think it's going to be like a 1-1. I think it'll be like a 1-1, something like that.
No, that's fair.
Maybe Fernandes might get a goal. Who knows?
Yep. So if we look ahead to this week, I've obviously got Tom in the head-to-head league, and you have got Blake Rookledge, who actually won the league last year. So his team should be pretty good. Hopefully, you can knock him off early because that'd be nice.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard. Now, if we quickly hop over to Fantasy Challenge for this week, it is the promoted punt. Now, last week, my team was rubbish. I got 11 points, and I think I finished 5th. And my cousin, though, he was the only person that had Haaland, and he had him captain, and it was double points for goals. So he's got a substantial lead over all of us in the league. But this week, you just have to pick a team of 5 that is purely made up of Southampton, Ipswich, and Leicester players. So I've gone with this lineup. So I've gone McCarthy in goal, Hardwood Bellis, Brereton Diaz, Luongo, and Delap because all the other options were 5.6 and it meant I didn't have enough money.
Yeah, when I done my challenge last week, didn't have enough money. I am getting used to this game. I haven't done my team yet. I've literally just looked at it. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'll have to let you know next week how I get on. I need to put some thought into this.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Now, moving on to the final part of the show. Now, What are the players you've got your eyes on? Because obviously we do have the international break coming up, and the transfer window is about to slam shut in about 36 hours time or whatever it is now. We're into the final 48 hours. What are you keeping your eye on in the over the next weekend, really, leading up
Well,
into the
I
national
mean,
break?
so well, I've done two transfers. So I brought in Burn for Barco. I got rid of him and I brought in Burn, and then I brought in Smith Rowe for Nkunku. But in terms of people that I'm keeping an eye on, I would like to see what Neto does at Chelsea. You know, I watched him play last season. I really liked him the way he plays. So I'm keeping an eye on him. I'd like to get Palmer into my team somehow. He's nailed. You know, he's great. In Bomo, I think he's great value. I think he's got some tricky fixtures in 4 and 5, but I think he's great value. And Semedo, I think, is somebody that I'm going to look at as well. I'm going to see how it goes with Isaac and Watkins. But if these strikers are not getting returns, I might have to look at some other options. So that's where I'm at.
I suppose the hard thing for me is that obviously the international break is hard because you want to make your transfers early to avoid the price changes. But over an international break, your players can get injured all the way up to when they come back. The players can come back late. So I just want to see really, like, particularly that there's a lot of transfer gossip going around as well. So I think that could impact some of the assets that we've got in certain teams. Chelsea are a really interesting team that I want to just see how they're going to settle after the international break. Like, are we going to get the second or third string team on the Thursday night in the Europa Conference League, or are we going to get that in the Premier League? How's the rotation going to work? I want to see that. I believe Palmer will be starting most Premier League games. And I really want him in, and I am very concerned about him this week. He definitely caught the eye, and there's a reason why he top scored last year, and that was on full display on the weekend. The other sort of teams I want to keep an eye on moving forward are some of the promoted teams. They've got to, I mean, Ipswich have had the two hardest games of the season to begin with. Liverpool and then Man City away. It gets a lot easier for them now, and it'll be interesting to see if their players can actually produce some numbers, because obviously they are all really cheap, and if there's a gem in there, we might be able to jump on over the international break or later on when I use my wild card.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, it's just sort of with the international break, just waiting. You know, I don't like to take too many risks. So, like you say, injuries can happen, you know, right until when they're back. So, I'm just going to wait, and with the transfers as well, wait for the information.
Yeah, waiting for the information at this stage is definitely a really good idea and something that I would definitely recommend doing. I obviously looked at Jacob Murphy's performance on the weekend and the fact he got subbed off, and I was like, I just can't hold that, because I was like, his price is going to go down, and it did go down, and I managed to jump off before it changed. So I actually transferred him to Smith Rowe before Smith Rowe's price went up. So I've actually done really well to bring Smith Rowe in and not cop the minus zero point 0.01. Obviously, moving forward, I've used two trades in 2 weeks, so I did actually weigh up whether to get rid of Kulusevski as well, because I knew his price was going to drop. But I think that I want to hold him for this weekend, because obviously they've got Newcastle, and the way Tottenham play, if he's on the field, he's probably going to be in amongst the points. And I'm hoping that after they've played Newcastle and then Arsenal, that his run of form will change, and hopefully I'll get some reward for holding on to him. Otherwise it could drop another 0.1, and I could be in real trouble trying to move him on. But I think if
Yeah.
it doesn't go well, I think I'm looking at Matoma, who's now up to 5.6, but I can definitely get there if I sideways trade, and it might give me a handy 0.8 later on in the season that I might need somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the last thing we've got to discuss this week, captaincy options. Where are you going?
I'm torn. I'm torn. I think Saka would be the safe bet. But I'm also looking at Muniz, you know, or I could go differential and go with Smith Rowe. Do I take the risk and go for the potential of getting big points, or do I go for the safe bet? Do you know what? I think I'm going to go with Muniz. I think I'm going to take the risk and see what happens.
Yeah, Ipswich are conceding goals. I think there's definitely goals in that game for Fulham. It's just a matter of who scores them and how many they're going to score. I suppose for me, one thing that I definitely wouldn't discount is Mo Salah's record at Old Trafford is unbelievably good. He has scored 14 times in 15 games against Manchester United, and he scored twice at Old Trafford last year in that game. I wouldn't be surprised if he returns with at least a goal in this game. But as I said, I am expecting it to be a high scoring affair. So I'm concerned about Trent, but I'm hoping that my United assets do perform. I think Haaland, as most people would say, is probably a safe bet to score again against West Ham. And I dare say he'll probably be the most popular captain pick of the week again. But Palmer has a very juicy fixture against Crystal Palace at home, and he would also be worth a very good look. And if I actually had him in my team, I think I would actually go Palmer this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what happens.
That's it. Well, hopefully for you, Alan, it goes a bit better than last week. What are your plans for this weekend?
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. This weekend, what am I doing? No, it's a very relaxing weekend for me this weekend. Schools go back next week in the UK, so next week is a big week at work. So yeah, I think a nice quiet weekend for me.
No, that's fair. And
what about you?
And for me, we've got our semi-finals in our actual football over here, so that's why I've got my Boulder shirt on today. Well, the 16s play tomorrow. They're undefeated for the season, and I'm expecting that they should hopefully walk straight into their grand final. And then we've got our semi-final and a much harder game on the Sunday. And hopefully I could score a couple of goals. If I was a betting man and I could put money on myself to captain in fantasy, I reckon I'm a sneaky chance for a hat-trick this weekend and the 3 bonus points. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Remember to make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you all again next week just to see how game week 3 went and what we're going to do over the international break to keep ourselves busy. Thanks for joining us, Alan. See you next time.
All right. See ya.
See ya.